If you thought the Murmur was an odd change of pace from rock bottom, you're in for a surprise because we're about to go skiing at Sand Mountain, as I welcome you back to part 7 of SpongeBob BFBB Rehydrated, where today, well, you'll see.
Where sea creatures go to enjoy an afternoon of falling down.
Squidward, am I glad you're here. I need to borrow your toothbrush again.
What? You've used it before?
Oh yeah, lots of times. I figured if you didn't know, you wouldn't mind.
Fine. What do I care? I'm a wreck anyways. I try and get some exercise to relax from all this robot mess, and now everything is ruined.
Because of a toothbrush?
No, it's those blasted robots! They've taken over the ski slopes! How can I ski with those ugly things beating everyone up? Listen, SpongeBob, you've gotta help me. I'm gonna lose my marbles if I don't get some relaxation.
I've found if you keep your marbles in a bag, they don't get lost as often. In fact, I've got mine right here. It's embroidered with this lovely...
Forget the marbles! I've got a better idea. If you get rid of the robots at the bottom of every slope for me, I'll give you one of those golden spatulas.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to beat the extreme fun of marbles.
Okay, I'll give you one for each slope you clear.
Now that's a deal!
Do you ever get the impression that SpongeBob's at least slightly smarter than he lets on? Because he only stopped his conversation once Squidward was like, alright fine, I'll give you a spatula for each of the 3 slopes you clear. And then he was like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, he fucking knew, right? Anyway, welcome to Sand Mountain, arguably the shortest level in the game. The way it works is, you've got this middle area that's tiny, has 1 golden spatula chilling up here and 1 golden spatula tied to Bungee, which we'll go to right now, because you can just skip and get up here pretty quickly.
Hello, my most
Hey, Plankton.
friend in the whole world.
And then the rest of them are got from each of the 3 ski slopes. There's 2 spatulas on each slope.
Can I have it?
Sure.
One for just getting down it and beating the robots at the bottom, which is the one that Squidward will give you, and the other for beating a time limit, because there'll be someone at the top of each hill that'll say, hey, I've got down this slope in this time, can you do that? Can you beat it? Which is all just the glorified training for one particular slide in Kelp Forest. Literally, that's all it's for. It's just getting you used to sliding and doing sharper turns and getting prepared, so then when Kelp Forest shows up and kicks your ass 10 times over, you're like, oh, that's why they wanted me to get good at it. But anyway, you're supposed to actually go around to get up here. There's a path to the left of this little middle lodge, but why bother when you can just jump on the plant and jump up from there? In the same way that in the original there was a crashed miniature rocket that you could jump off instead, whilst now I think it's just ever so slightly too low, so you can't really get good use out of it. It's still there in this, the little tiny crashed rocket, you just can't really jump off it, so you might as well use the plants instead, since you can stand on top of them and they stand taller. But anyway, over here, Gary is alerting you that there is a spatula here that's specifically for Sandy, and it's probably the most throwaway spatula in the game, and that's even including the Bungee one that's here. Whack the switch, follow this in a little circle, and then get the spatula. The spatula, that little circle that glows where it is mispositioned from where the spatula is. It's like slightly above it. And there you go, both the spatulas in this zone are got with and done in like, what, a minute or 2? And usually I go to the 3rd one first of the 3 lodges, but for the sake of consistency, I'll go to number 1 first, then 2, then 3. I just like to get the 3rd one out of the way because it is technically the most difficult. Remember, it's a CUPPY MOUND, the first of the 3 slopes, and the easiest. And this is where something that is genuinely something that really gets under my skin with the Rehydrated, something I genuinely don't like. The rendering, the fog. The way it's trying to mask the rendering. If you disable the fog in any sense of the word on PC, it becomes very apparent this fog is not here for a rendering issue. Well, it kind of is, but not enough to justify its existence. And that applies to every version of the game. Like, if you change the specs and change how it works, and on very weak PCs, it's exactly the same. The fog feels worthless. What it's masking in the rendering is so far away anyway, you wouldn't be able to see it without the fog. Well, you wouldn't be able to see it easily enough to justify it. So this fog is just a nuisance. I don't like this fog being here. I know it's reduced on PC naturally, but it's just like, it's like this on every version, and I've heard it's hideous on the Switch. And it's just, yeah, it's not necessary. Anyway, there's 2 socks pretty close by. We already got one, there's the second. You just gotta go on the underpath of that bit there, and the other one, the optional path is obvious. I'll try not to do it as often, but I almost always going down this mountain deliberately hit the Thunder Tikis for the extra shinies. But because I've got a grind spot in mind for later on, I'm not as fussed. Also, there's a 3rd sock here, and that's one of the ones that they actually kind of changed. In the original, that was a platform. You had to stop sliding, hop off, climb it up, get the sock, then continue sliding on the other side. Whilst now they've made it so you can keep up the flow. It just goes, the slide tilts up for a second. You don't have to waste any time, and I much prefer that. That's a huge, that's a huge good thing. There's a word I'm trying to think of, and it's slipping my mind because I'm live and trying to beat up all these robots. Improvement, there's the word I'm looking for. Anyway, you wreck all the robots and then hit the 2 buttons. You'll get the reward from Squidward. You don't have to actually go back to Squidward to get them. They just appear down here. Also, the new camera angles for the snowballs wrecking the fences are kind of odd. Like, I get they're trying to be a bit more fun with them and have a bit more of a bounce, but all of them just seem a bit too much in their own little ways. I don't know really how else to explain it. Anyway, let's take this box back up and talk to Mrs. Puff to get the spatula off her for beating her time.
You pass with flying colors.
Hooray. Worth mentioning, in Rehydrated, if you start the time limit and then fail the slide at any point, you won't be checkpointed anymore. Instead, you'll just get taken back up to the top, sort of thing. I try and pause my breaths anytime there's going to be a load screen coming up, because I know I'll probably be editing them out, so I don't want to just suddenly jump to a word. I don't want to be like da 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 da, and the sort of thing, like just suddenly jolt from one thing to the other. But the second is Flounder Hill. And Flounder Hill is the one that kind of, they used to be the most annoying, because if you're going for 100%, there's a challenge here that kind of sucks. But they've altered it to make it far more manageable. There's 8 snowmen, or sandmen, around the gaff that need to be broken. If you break all 8 of them, you can get a sock. In the original, it didn't count as a main collectible, so if you fell off the slide and died, they all reset. So you had to hit all 8 in one life. But you can't hit all 8 in a single run. You have to do at least 2 runs of the entire mountain to try and get all of them, which started to make it more frustrating because there's also a lot of obstacles that can get you hurt here. So you can kind of see where I'm getting at here. It started to become quite painful and a little annoying. Not too bad, like you're gonna, I see no reason why I won't be able to do it, like even ignoring that. But now it doesn't matter if you die, it doesn't matter if you leave the level, it will save them because they count it as this level's main collectible. Sort of like the buttons in the Murmur Lair, the artwork from Rock Bottom, the children in Goo Lagoon, the wheels in Downtown, and the bottle in Jellyfish Fields. Which I always found odd that the bottle got counted, which it shouldn't, because it's literally just the one bottle. Yet the Sandmen here don't, just because, you know, they're not tied to a spatula, they're only tied to a sock. So I'm glad Rehydrated addressed that and altered it to make it more forgiving. Because ultimately, as much as I love this game, and there are some things I feel were made way too easy for their own good, I know I'm not the target demographic anymore. I was when the original came out, because I was only like 4 or 5 years old, but not anymore. There are still some things I'm like, look, I managed to do perfectly fine, or at least found a way through when I was 4 or 5, so the fact that they've made them easier in this feels stupid. It's like, well, kids can clearly do it. Have you seen the kids play the original? So why have you made it easier? Anyway, that snowman that's right down there, I'm leaving that to my second visit because I want to get the sock that's up here first. Which is right here. You kind of see what I mean by why this level's the shortest, because that's the end of the second of 3 slopes, and how long's this video been? Like, I know I'm recording it live, but I'm pretty sure it hasn't even been 10 minutes yet. Oh, I actually hit that. I wasn't sure if I was gonna. Oh, actually, okay, I didn't realise you could hit the buttons through the duplicatortrons now. Well, I learned something new still. It's only my second playthrough of Rehydrated, even if it's not my millionth of the original. But we got dead on 50. We have enough spatulas to get access to the first area of Act 3 straight from the boss. As soon as we do the Act 2 boss, which will probably be at the end of this video because this would be way too short a video otherwise.
Here's a spatula.
After that, the first area of the third act requires 50 spatulas. Then it's 60, and then after that, the last proper level doesn't have a spatula requirement. And then after that, the final boss is 75. So we're actually already relatively close.
I love opening presents.
But anyway, there's a few more snowmen to get along the way. Starting with that one. There's 3 left. 2 of them are right at the bottom. The only one we're missing is when there's the fork in the road just after the checkpoint. We're going to need to go right instead of left. This fork in the road coming up. Not that you can see it that well because of the damn fog, but... Ow.
Fresh like a spring breeze.
If you follow this all the way round, there is your 7th right here. If you hit the snowman like, or your 6th even, so you're 7th and 8th for later on. If you hit a snowman like perfectly dead on in Rehydrated, it will kill Spongebob's momentum for some reason, and it never used to do that in the original. So always try and hit it at an ever so slight angle so you can just keep on going past it. That's another little thing that I can imagine they will iron out over time as more patches and such come out for this. So you're getting checkpoints now. My throat is actually starting to get a teeny tiny bit tired because I'm doing the entire game in one session essentially. I've got this far, I might as well just do the last few levels because the last few levels, none of them are that long. I say that, I know every level's not that long, but the last 3, you can feel even in the original that they were starting to run out of development time when they made them because none of them are that long or complicated. But there's our the last of the sandmen. I keep on going to call them snowmen, but technically they're sandmen. It doesn't matter if we die now, but oh, we managed to live anyway. But because I'm doing it all in one session, I haven't done that in a long time. And usually when I am doing sessions, I'm, you know, not recording. Most of the projects I've been doing recently have been in post. So theoretically, if you look at the length of every part together, that's pretty much how long I've been talking straight. My throat is starting to cave in a little bit. Fire, bombot. All we got left is the 3rd slide, which is literally called Sand Mountain. Yeah, mind the bombots. They just blew up. I think they broke the boxes. Sand Mountain is the biggest and technically the most difficult of the lot, and it's also the one you're likely to be the tightest on the timer. And there's a sock here that you need Sandy for as well.
My time down this slope is unbeatable.
Yeah, you say that, Larry, but I'm here. Yeah, I accept your time challenge. Make sure to open the box. Oh, I forgot I was on 1 HP.
Ready? I'm ready.
Oh well. I was just going to break them for shinies. I didn't realise I was only on 1 HP. Oh well.
I'm the fat.
Oh, you got to accept the challenge again if you die. Anyway, first thing first, hit this spring. Be careful. The spring is a lot stronger in Rehydrate in the original, so you can miss this ledge. Just kind of hold forward and it should carry you enough. Because there's a sock right at the end, leaving us with only 21 socks left in the entire game. And keep in mind, after the next boss fight, we'll be able to, well, I'll be able to backtrack to Jellyfish Fields and Downtown to get the missing socks and spatula respectively. Technically there is a sock we can get now because we have the bubble bowl, but I'd like to rather just wait until we have the cruise bubble and get them both out in one go. Save having to do revisits. You might have just noticed the sock we went past. We'll be getting that with Sandy in a little bit. But if you make sure to knock this giant snowball down, it will eventually cave into the side of this rock, allowing you to access an extra path. Follow it round. As much as it might be tempting to jump through the fences to get the purple shiny, that's just there for the shortcut. You want to follow it round to actually get the sock. Because now we're at 60. We've only got 20 socks left and we've got all of them in the game. Additionally, you've probably already noticed by now, but I like to actually get all 80 socks before I turn them in. It's just something I've always done. Because if you keep on turning them in as you go, I feel like you almost lose some of the progression of it. But if you know there's 80, you have an idea of how much you've progressed always. But this last stretch here, kind of pick and choose what paths you take, because some are longer than others and you will run out of time if you take the longer paths. Like in this instance, I'll go left just because the other kind of spirals round a little bit, whilst this just cuts straight over to it. And we've got it with 9 seconds to spare. Be careful on that jump. On my blind playthrough, I straight up fucking cleared it in this game because the momentum physics are so whack. But if we can hit this button, yeah, I can. So if I can hit this button, what if I just smack the Duplicatron 2 times? Will I just hit it through it? Okay. That's another one that I was kind of like, that's kind of an odd one. Like, I get it's the comedic effect of, oh no, look out, and it hits the camera, but it just seems a bit jank. I like what they tried to do with the camera in a lot of instances, but that one just kind of sits weird. I like some of the attention to details that, like, the sand covers all the trees here. Like, in the whole of Sand Mountain, like, because the sand is the equivalent of snow here, the sand's covered all the trees where it's so regular. But so there is one last thing left to do before we're completely done with this area, because we don't ever need to return to Squidward. We've got all 3 of the spatulas. All we need to do is ride this down one last time to get the sock that we missed that's halfway down. But I'll show the alternate path. There's also a pretty nifty shortcut if you cut off over here that saves a lot of time. And have you noticed that we pretty much haven't used Sandy this level outside of optional stuff? Well, that one spatula and then this sock and that's it. That's kind of what I mean by the side characters that aren't SpongeBob only get like one major level of significance, and then after that they're kind of forgotten about for the most part. Patrick still technically has the second act of Kelp Forest, but that's not that big. And that's literally it for Patrick, by the way, because Sandy's in Flying Dutchman's Graveyard and Sandy's in SpongeBob's Dream as well.
I suppose it'll make Patrick happy.
We've only got one more instance of use with Patrick. But anyway, let's go back to Shady Shoals. Or the spatula in front of Shady Shoals, because this is where it drops you, so you can be right next to it. Because when there's nowhere this video is long enough, we might as well do the boss as well.
Wow, that robot looks like Patrick, and its breath seems just as bad.
This day just doesn't seem to be getting any better.
SpongeBob, hurry! Squidward's in more trouble than a chili relleno in a pan of grease. We have to help!
You're right, Sandy. But if that robot really is like Patrick, he'll eat us for dessert. What should we do?
Well, we better figure something out, and pronto!
Maybe that button on his back is a self-destruct. I'll try to hit it.
Good idea, SpongeBob, but it's time to stop yapping and get to it.
Time for the second major boss against Robot Patrick. And man, has this fight fucking suffered. This fight is nowhere near as polished. I know I've mentioned it before that the main boss fights feel like they were the very last thing made because they don't feel finished. But look at this. What the hell did it just do there? Why did it just zip straight to the middle just to be dizzy there? Why is it its get off me attack has the tiniest range when it used to be able to reach you from the furthest edge in the original? Because the about of it wasn't that you had to get off, you had to go diagonal to avoid it. If you just ran away, it would hit you. Like, this fight it feels poorly put together, and it's only going to get worse when we get to phase 2 and when we especially phase 3. Phase 3 straight up annoys me. And I look forward to seeing what these boss fights become in later patches and how much they get addressed on. More so the final boss, like the actual final boss has got monumental issues that I'll be talking about throughout the whole thing. But once you get the third hit, it will give you the opportunity to start the next cutscene where SpongeBob will try and run away to try and save Squidward and just get frozen in place for his trouble.
You pushed this squirrel too far.
And the animation of the robot Patrick responding and freezing SpongeBob was a lot quicker, which is why SpongeBob just awkwardly stood there for a second in this version because of how much slower it was. With this version, or this phase, sorry, you will be pulling on the lasso pieces to drop boxes so you can reach Robot Patrick easier. But they're kind of worthless because you can attack so freely in midair now. Like the air attack mobility has been opened up so much that you really don't need them. You can jump over to Robot Patrick, smack its back, jump away, and still get away to the platform without touching the boxes. But I'll show you how you're supposed to do it. Also, this wild spin attack thing that it's doing only seems to touch the outward edge, whilst in the original, it didn't do that. In the original, it covered everything, so you had to actually pay attention to where it was coming from to avoid it. I don't know if it's a deliberate thing to just make this game far easier than it ever needs to be, because, you know, I did it fine when I was 5. But I've got a suspicion it's more so that it's just a problem with with how they've coded it. Same as that attack where it just goes full like throwing it at you directly, lasted long enough for you to almost do an entire lap of this building. It lasted a long ass time, and you had to keep on top of it and pay attention to your momentum to get it, whilst now it barely lasts any time at all. But because the game immediately snaps you out as soon as you hit the attack, you can just dive in and go in for the kill on the third hit in this fight, which you couldn't really do in the original. It had to recover and get up and move to the switch again, and then the cutscene started, so there was still chance for you to die. This third phase is where the problem starts. Firstly, that ice breath is completely different in this how it was in the original, making it redundant to almost every other attack it does. In the original, it was a pretty quick attack that was very low. You had to jump over it. So it was an obstacle that was, you know, different. Unlike the rest of the attacks where you had to just move to the left or right to try and avoid. But this attack is now the same. You're just moving to the side to avoid it. So all of the attacks are just keep moving left or right. So it's not making you think. It just feels like such a downgrade to the attack. And I don't know if that's something that will get to be addressed because it's such a different thing. The other major problem I have is in the original you had to actually amp up the bubble bowl and make sure it hit the back without touching the goo. In this, gotta break it to you, if it hits the goo it will just bounce across it, completely fucking defeating the point of the obstacle of having to position yourself, make sure you get yourself like lined up well, make sure you're back far up enough and then charge it fully to hit it. Now the fight just falls apart because it doesn't matter, it will just bounce across the goo regardless. See? I don't know. I might be sounding overly critical on the boss fights, but the major boss fights are the things that need the patches the most because they are inferior to the original, like drastically.
Popsicles if it wasn't for her.
Aw, shucks. You fellers are gonna make me blush.
I think I have fudge in my pants. I'm sorry, Plankton. The Chum Bucket lab is locked up tight. I don't know if I'll ever get enough golden spatulas to get in.
Yes, it's the Chum Bucket security system. I designed it myself. It makes me so proud. It was meant to keep out the hateful throngs of the unwashed. Unfortunately, I never figured I'd be on this side of it.
So what are you gonna do, Plankton?
We, of course meaning you, are gonna have to go out there and get those golden spatulas! Or I'll never get back into the Chum Bucket and regain control of my robots.
What was that?
Oh, I said, will I ever get back into the Chum Bucket to stain all my pots? Yes.
Something's fishy here.
Keep looking for golden spatulas, SpongeBob. I'm sure that my robots out there have some.
Hey, you called them your robots.
No,
And I saw a plaque on the butt of one of the robots that said, "Property of Plankton."
Well, maybe, but
And I found this order form for robot parts with your signature on it.
Can I have that back? I need it for my tax write-off.
I think you've been pulling my leg this whole time.
Well, duh!
I'll bet you made all these robots. And after I get inside the Chum Bucket and figure out how to stop them, I'm gonna tell everyone.
Fine, tell everyone. Be a big tattletale. I'm still smarter than all of you!
I like how Plankton doesn't even try and hide it any further. The moment he's called out on it, he's like, well, duh, of course I was trying to trick you, were you fucking stupid? Anyway, we're finally in the third act of the game and have access to SpongeBob's final attack, the Cruise Bubble, which I'll be showing off plentifully in the next main level of the game, Kelp Forest. But until then, you guys take care now.